Well, like I said, I think any movie where it's so clearly trying to be a Woody Allen movie is destined to fail. And this was so trying to be Manhattan, or um, you know, one of Woody's sort of like late 70s, early 80s kind of movies, and it didn't work at all for me. I mean, he's trying so hard to be Woody that the movie looks good. The cinematography is good. The lighting is good. It's the black and white cinematography is really, really well shot, but it lacks something that Manhattan did. That the way that it looks, Manhattan had a glamour to it that I didn't feel like this did.
Mm-hmm.
In watching it, I just thought there's not that I can think of. There's not too many wide master shots or scenic shots, or scenes just seem to start and there are people in a room.
Mm-hmm.
And Manhattan had the big, constantly cutting to the skyline or cutting to different buildings or showing the scope of the city, and this just feels really small. And
Yeah.
I don't think that, and this is maybe something that Louis might be devastated to hear. I don't think his style is compatible with Woody's, and so it feels like his TV show, which I only watched a couple episodes of because it was so awkward.
Mm.
I couldn't really get through. I really like Louis C.K.'s stand-up, and I've seen him in a couple of movies that he's done well in as an actor, like Blue Jasmine, and a movie called Trumbo that he was very good in. Here, the whole thing is so awkward and uncomfortable in a way that, the whole thing with Louis getting in trouble. He talked about, he was younger when he did it. He didn't do it, probably for like 10 years. And, he talked about how it showed a lack of common sense on his part. This feels like there's still a lack of common sense in just about every step of this movie.
let me jump in, because I want to say, regarding the presentation, everything you just said about the presentation, I will second. Just like you said with Manhattan, to be honest with you, when you first said that you felt like it was shot well enough, but at the same time, it didn't have the majesticness or even the vision or even ambition as Manhattan, I will double that. To be honest with you, it just feels kind of cheap to me that he just made a black and white movie, but it really I don't know who the cinematographer was, and maybe I should find his name right now, but it just seemed very basic. It just seemed like you said, it was small, there was no scope to it, and the camera didn't even move with finesse. Like a lot of the times I've seen so many Woody Allen movies, when the camera moves, it kind of glides, and it's like someone who's observing and enjoying the scenery. This time it was exactly like you said. It was like from point A to B, and a lot of people that black and white movies aren't made as much anymore. And when people do make them, they're always, some people say it's a gimmick, and unfortunately, the reason why I won't say it's a gimmick, because he's obviously just copying Woody Allen, but he didn't do it well, and I just think the cinematographer didn't do a good job. And at the end of the, I'm not jumping in terms of plot. Just at the end, there's a scene where they're at a birthday party, and there's a big wide shot, and even that was a big chance where I was like, okay, this is where you're going to shine with the camera, and it just didn't work. I just felt like the cinematographer wasn't really ambitious, that he really did put a color filter on this, and I was disappointed with the presentation. But from watching the trailer, this is exactly what I thought it was going to be in terms of the looks. So I'm just going to jump in there and say I agree with you wholeheartedly. The presentation to start was disappointing.
It felt very flat. It didn't feel like there was a depth to it at all. I wouldn't. I don't know how it was shot, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was shot. Definitely not on film.
I think it was 30mm. I think it was.
If it was, then they really did it. It looks like it was shot on a, not a terrible. I mean, digital gets a bad reputation because of the early days, but a lot of things are shot digitally now. But Woody's movies are always shot on film, and there's a depth that you get to that, and a richness when you're shooting in black and white that digital can't really replicate yet. And this just felt it like, if you look at Manhattan, the shadows, there's that scene in Manhattan where it's Woody and Mariel Hemingway and his two friends, and they're just sitting in a restaurant talking.
Yeah,
there's a richness to the shadows and that scene. It's a and the camera's moving in that scene. It's just four people at a table talking, but visually it's interesting.
Do you think that we're spoiled? I hate to sound like a snob, because I one of the claims that I have with this podcast is that, these are normal, ordinary guys, not your film snobs talking about Woody Allen films. But when you've watched Woody Allen's masterful cinematography over the years, and then you see this, and you see that Louis C.K. is a fan of Woody Allen, he's said it multiple times, and he bungles it. It's really disappointing.
Yeah.
I hate to be harsh on him about this, because I hate to be a film snob, but I'm just like, you say that you're trying to emulate someone you really respect, but it's so bad. It's really lame. Sorry, Louis.
And the opening and closing credits almost make it look like it's supposed to be a classic like a 1940s black and white movie.
Yeah.
And I was put off as soon as the title comes up and that sort of the old-timey score kicks in. I was just like, what the fuck is this? Like, I thought this was, why is it, like, if he's, I get he probably didn't want to do just the black screen with the white text like what he does, because that maybe would be too far, but it just felt so out of place. And for a movie that, if you're going to make, I've seen movies before that try to be, a 1940s movie, but was not it. And it felt wrong-headed just every step of the way.
Yeah, and I want to say, here's a black and white movie. I'm going to name one before we move on to the other stuff. Here's a black and white movie that isn't even majestic, doesn't even have big ambition cinematography-wise, and that's great. And that's Clerks. Kevin Smith's first movie, Clerks, is black and white, but you can tell that the director and the cinematographer have purpose. I just think Louis C.K. dropped the ball, and I hate to throw a cinematographer on the bus, and we should move on from this, but yeah.